the Business Men and Women of Color podcast. I am your host, Ann Alston, and it is once again my pleasure to be back here giving these types of programs to you. And I say these types because we have 4 years of podcast experience here at the BMWOC. We're in our 4th season, going strong with about 58 participants we have this year, including the BMWOC magazine that is on fire right now. So if you are on this platform and you are listening right now, just head on over to bmwocpodcast.com/bmwocmag and definitely check out the latest magazine that we have featuring the local businesses and people from around the world doing interesting things. Now, this year on the podcast, we have, again, 58 amazing people from all over the country sharing their information for you. So I need you to share, like, and vote for your favorite podcast person to win one of 7 BMWOC awards that we have again this year. If you would like to see winners from last year, please check out the 2018 and the 2017 BMWOC platform that you just click up on the link above at the bmwocpodcast.com website. Just in case you didn't know, the podcast is a global online podcast platform that we use to unite people from around the world to share their information about their career in business. So if you're interested in any of the categories, they're here to share their story with you. So make sure that you have a pen, a piece of paper, get some notes, get some tips, tell a friend, like, share, and vote. And we definitely are happy to have you here visiting us at the BMWOC. Before we get started with our interview today, because we have another amazing author, coach, speaker, entrepreneur, we will first like to thank our corporate sponsors who are My Financial Home, Evangelism Radio, J&F Enterprises, Sears Consulting, Autism Families Rock, Awakening to Love, Eli Natoli, Kimberly McLemore, True Synergy, and Platinum Financial Services, along with our other BMWOC participants that are here making this a huge success in 2019. So again, at the top of the hour, we have another amazing author, media coach, and speaker who is Deborah Franklin. Deborah Franklin, she believes that everyone can reach their fullest potential and ignite their power within if they can change their mindset. She is the author of Adjectives and 21 Days, 21 Minutes of Prayer and Meditation, and she is also the host of Conversations with Deborah Franklin and a co-host on The T, a book review talk show. Deborah is also the host of an online radio show, which gives her the direct insight on how to empower you to rock the mic worldwide. She has been working as a media coach for several years with her clients in the medical and entertainment industry. Deborah also uses her platform to allow other aspiring artists an outlet for their talents to shine, just like the BMWOC, a girl of my kind heart. Deborah, welcome to the podcast.
Hello, and thank you for having me.
Thank you. Thank you. We have another podcast host on here together. I know it's going to be powerful. Thank you so much for attending and just being part of the movement and everything being on this platform.
Oh, no problem. I love it.
Absolutely. So go ahead, and I always start with this question. Go ahead and introduce yourself and where you're from and what were your interests when you were growing up?
Oh, wow. My name is Deborah Franklin. I consider myself as America's #1 purpose and destiny igniter because I feel like everybody can change whatever is going on within them from the inside out. And it doesn't matter because I love to say you can wear as much mask as you want to, but if your inside is jacked up, their outside is messed up as well. I am originally from Houston, Texas, and now residing in the D.C. area. And I'm sorry, what was my last question that you had me? I get so excited when somebody asks me about, what I believe in.
Yes, you know what? I think I always ask that question in the beginning, like, what was your interest? Because what I find fascinating when you were growing up is that you always have this one interest, and then as you're growing up and you get exposure to the world, that you see all these other things that's going on, and then all of a sudden a shift happened. So, what was going on in your childhood that that you had interest in, and what got you into entertainment, which is really radio, which is what we love to do, right?
Oh my God, that is such a loaded question because as a child, I always wanted to be an attorney. I thought I was going to be a lawyer child. I would tell everybody, "What
What
you
do you
gonna do
mean
when
an
you grow up?"
attorney? You said
I
that
want
is
to be a
not
lawyer.
that is not
And it's
entertainment at all.
at all. And then I got this love of just being able to speak. And actually, I was a theater person. But how many of us growing up, those of us that are a little bit over 40, um, could come home and say, "Hey, I'm a theater major." So no. So actually, I went to school. I wanted to get into marketing, not marketing, but not marketing. I wanted to get into, let's say, marketing of plays and concerts. I really wanted to be behind the scenes. So I minored in theater, majored in communications. And so as a kid growing up, that was always my thing. I like putting things together. I was an organizer. I was a visionary. And then I had speaking skills and I used them, but it was mainly I would train other people to do what I was doing. And so and it just kind of stemmed from there of what got me to this point that I'm at now. So that's the cool part about it.
So wow, you had a really good shift of different type of interests from lawyer to accountant to theater and now I guess, it's for me, I'm like that too. I dabble in a lot of things until I figure out what I like, but I've always come back to music and entertaining and it's just like it's my core DNA. You might as well
Yes.
say. So doing this podcast is really like as close to television as I can ever get. Or using my voice and things like that. So how did you, well, let's just step back, how did you actually um you know because you went to school, you got your communications and masters in education and leadership. How was that experience for you going into communications? And then the second part of the question is, were there a lot of minorities in that field during the time that you went to college?
Okay. Actually, with my undergrad, I got exposed to radio, and then my background really was in advertising and PR. And to answer that question, there were not a lot of people of color in those fields. Let's say because I'm from Texas, so that's what brought me out here. I started looking at different things, and I wanted to get back into radio. And so growing, going to college exposed me because I ended up graduating from Texas Southern. So going to Texas Southern University and graduating from there, I was exposed to a lot of, let's say, the black newspapers, papers of color, radio of color. But then I wanted the exposure on a different platform. So that's what brought me to this point and kind of turned me around.
Hmm.
And then, but I didn't let not seeing a lot of people that didn't look like me kind of deter me because my mind wasn't on the in front of the screen. I was mainly dealing with what was behind the screen because I like doing promotional items. I like going on promotional tours. So a lot of that, I did see a lot of people of color doing that. So I wasn't, let's say, like some people were kind of deterred from being in communications, as a lot of people
Hmm.
know. And even now, a lot of your newscasters don't look like us. They look
Mm.
like other nationalities. So it's really refreshing now to see so many
Hmm.
people of color, different nationalities, different beliefs on TV doing the news. And then some things that kind of deterred me was more or less religious than it was seeing people that look like me because I never wanted to go against my beliefs or what I believe from my beliefs in Christ and my beliefs in the church. I was a little different in my approach of getting out here in the industry.
So, just to your point about seeing more minorities and particularly African Americans in new news roles and movie roles, yes, it definitely has been a shift over the last few years to incorporate more minorities in those type of roles because I know that in my generation and my kids' generation, there wasn't a lot of conversation regarding going into journalism or going into communications. It was always like the top norms. You got your lawyers, your doctor, your retail, and maybe an accountant, maybe an administrative assistant or IT, and over the last 10 years, cybersecurity. Okay. So, but no one really talks about, oh, the best job in the world is can be communications or some form of PR or besides the social media marketing that is. But I think that over the last few years, some of those careers have definitely has stepped up in terms of communications because of the technology that is needed and the technology that's driving America to use social media and using communication. So I do think that it is refreshing, and I agree with your points on that. So after you kind of just went through that portion of it, what sparked you to start doing your own podcast or radio program, and what was the concept behind it?
Okay, actually, well, it was one of those aha moments. I woke up and said, "Oh, you got a degree. How about you use it?" So I called a friend and I said, I'm thinking about going back in the radio. I'm trying to see if I could do some podcasting here or there. And I was looking at something. Have you heard of this? Have you heard of that? He was like, "Stop it." He said, "No, do you know I'm getting ready to launch a show and I want you to come on and be one of the DJs?" I thought he just wanted me to come on and just do a couple segments. I didn't know that he wanted me to be the voice of the show. So that's what opened that door up for me again to be back in radio. And I did it and I loved it. And then, we ended up building the show out. We had it ended up being 4 co-hosts. And I was like, this is really cool. And then, of course, you know how things go with startups. We had some problems and we ended up just letting that show. And I said I wasn't going to let that hinder me. So I decided I'm going to start doing a podcast. So I ended up going on to Blog Talk Radio. And then I was like, oh, this is cool. And then I found some other stuff. So then I started doing independently. And then, now this is the funny part. I went and did an interview on someone else's show. I walked in, I did the interview, and the owner of the station came out and said, do you have your own show? Are you interested in having your own show? I was like, oh, no, not really. I said, I'm doing this, podcasting. I mean, those that do podcasting, you can podcast from home. You don't have to be in a
Hmm.
studio.
Right.
And so then that opened up another platform for me, so which gave me a different audience. So the past year has been really phenomenal for me in launching Conversations with Deborah Franklin because we've been able to give a platform to a lot of aspiring musicians, performers, authors, doctors, people that would come on the show. We've been able to give them an audience that they would normally not speak to. And then with the age of Facebook Live, so much can be done even with your podcast because in this age of social media, podcasting is so much fun. But when people are able to see you, they make a more of a connection with you.
Hmm.
And so now that's built up. More people are like, when are you going to put this here? When are you going to put that there? So it's just amazing. And I love this whole transition with the technology. And, with so many schools now offering a mass media curriculum for our kids. It's like now we're exposing them more to that whole digital side of life, and it's becoming, like you said, more acceptable in common conversation to say, "Oh, I'm a videographer," but yet still you can also say, I'm a digital media person as well." And it's really sparking interest into a field that people normally wouldn't gravitate to. And the money is actually there now, which is really cool.
Absolutely. And you know what's interesting, and we'll touch on a little bit of this, but I actually had a gentleman on here, one of our corporate sponsors, and our whole conversation was about, having good or bad podcasts. And what's interesting is that there are so many different ways that, people could do a podcast, as you mentioned, and as Robert Thibodeau mentioned also, that you could pretty much do a podcast from your phone, and it all depends on what message you're trying to do or what audience you're trying to reach. And in my opinion, I'm probably going to call it that the way that we're doing podcasts today, it's not even going to be podcast anymore. It's going to be called something else because it's
Mhm.
all like melding in together. I remember when podcasts first came out, it was a special little entity that people were doing. And now you can do so much with communications that I don't even think it's going to be called podcast anymore in the next year or two. It's probably going to be called something else because people are able to just pick up any kind of platform and call it a podcast. Um, what do you think about those opinions?
I totally agree with you, but I think it'll still be called podcasting because the whole theory behind a podcast is that I can listen to it when I want to. Because you know the
Mhm.
whole history behind podcasting is somebody had it on their iPod. What a concept!
Mhm.
And
Uh-huh.
so, and you're able to listen when you want. But those of us that are doing audio and video podcasting I think that's going to be where the new trend is. Because if I'm doing a video podcast and an audio, that means not only can I listen to you, quote unquote, on demand, but I can also see it, and I can also have a visual to go with that. So now that's changing the whole way this platform is done as well, because so many people are able to do it visual and audio at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So conversations, the company that you have and that you are interviewing people, are you sticking to like a particular theme, or are you just kind of bringing them on and just having them just explain what their passion is, whatever it is that they're trying to do? And I guess the second part of the question, because I got two-part questions for you today, is because it's so interesting what you do. And then the second thing is, what has been the impact of, sharing? Because I know the impact it is like for the BMWC, but it's refreshing for me to see another woman out there doing a similar podcast and touching on a whole different genre of people. And so I wanted to know, like, what has been the impact or feedback that you've been getting based on some of the stuff that's been talked about in your podcast show.
Okay, awesome. Well, first of all, we normally do themes, and we try to say to that, like, this month is all about women because it's Women's History Month, and the month of March. So in March, I've interviewed only women that have been making a move in whatever they're doing. And so then I developed, and so to see that impact of how that people have logged in, we talked to a nurse, we talked about health, we talked about relationships. And so usually we stick to the theme, we stick to the topic for the month. And sometimes even if I have a guest, let's say for instance a guest is coming on talking about their book, and they just so happen to fall in to, you know how it is. Okay, those of you that do podcasting, those of you that do radio, those of you that do anything dealing with entertainment, you know that you can book somebody to come on your show, and at the last minute they pull out, and then you have to get a guest to take that place. So even if I get a guest that's taking a place, I still have them to answer a question dealing with whatever topic or theme we're dealing for that particular month or that particular um, season or segment that we're doing. And then the impact that I've been getting inboxes from women that have been saying that they've really been helped by some of the guests. They've been able to ask questions, medical questions. They've been able to ask relationship questions. And they have been able to see some of their favorite performers on the show. And I'll never forget, I had one young man that came on the show. His mother hunted me down because she was like, she inboxed me. I need him to come on the show. But she was pushing him more than he was pushing himself. And he was so excited about coming on the show that it basically boosted him to try to start taking what he was doing to another level. So I like to say that conversations is a launching pad for anybody that's trying to get back out there in the industry, get noticed, and get some tape. Because as you know, as a podcaster, if you have tape, you have recordings of what you're doing, because people want to know, what are you doing, where are you going, how are you handling what you're doing. And so that's what coming on Conversations with Deborah Franklin does for our guests that come on. And that's
Fantastic.
how we've been impacting
Hmm.
impacting impacting the country, impacting the world, because we're international now, because we actually have an audience in
Nice.
Indonesia. So that's just
Uh-oh.
like so
Uh-oh.
way cool. I have
Uh-oh.
one of my guests, yeah, in Indonesia and in the UK. Because
So
I was like,
everybody
I was
who's
so
listening,
blown
give her a
away.
hand. That's right. You got to go
Yes,
global.
yes.
Yes, yes, absolutely. That is also a wonderful feeling to know that other people in other countries is really interested in what you're doing, what you have to say. It gives inspiration. It gives hope, because these stories, you just never know what people are going through, and it just radiates with so many people on so many levels. So yes, congratulations to you on that accomplishment, because I know how hard. And I would just ask on this last one, and we'll switch to talking about your book, is if someone wanted to go into podcasting, what would be your advice to give to someone who is looking to do that?
Just do it. Get up and just start doing it, because you can find so many platforms out here that you can do for free. Don't let not having the mic, not having the editor, not having this deter you from starting, because a lot of times if you just start, the other stuff will start just falling in. You'll start, because I know when I first started, I didn't even have like a microphone. And then somebody said, "Well, you doing this?" I said, "Well, yeah." They said, "Well, I got an extra microphone. Do you need it?" And I was like, "Huh?" So that's how you just never know. You never know what you have at your hand until you just get started in doing what you're supposed to be doing. Because I say this all the time. When God gives you a vision, He is going to provide the provision. He's not going to give you a vision and not give you what you need to make it come to pass. So that's what you just have to do. You just have to just jump out and start doing it.
Jump out and start doing it. Absolutely. So you have a book called
hmm
Adjectives in 21 Days, 21 Minutes of Prayer and Meditation. What is the concept about the book? And just give us a little, little nuggets about what's in it.
Oh my God, yes. Adjectives. Adjectives is my first baby. Anybody that's an author, you know how your first baby is like the one that amazes you. And adjectives deals with all the negative words that people may have said to you, calling you different names, and then it's basically taking that negative and turning it around into a positive. Being, you might be overweight. No, don't call me fat, baby. I'm fluffy and voluptuous. Don't come for me. Making sure that you take everything that is negative, and then like people like, "Hey, shorty, I'm not short. I have a height deficiency. Don't do that." So it's like you cannot be
Wow.
negative. You cannot be successful if you
hmm
continue to listen to those negative things that people have said to you while you were growing up. And then when I was writing this book, I dealt with a lot of stuff. This was a healing process for me. I was coming out of a very deep place. And with this book, I was able to start seeing that I was operating on words and things that people had said to me as a child. And I said, you know what? The devil is a lie. I started turning around, and everybody know. I had to start before I had blossomed up, and I tell everybody this is in the book. I had blossomed up to like 365 pounds. I had to start to learn to love myself at 365 before I could lose any weight. And then it got to the point I said, you know what? I'm gonna tell myself I look good every day. And then I started walking. I said, damn, you look
hmm
good. I was like, yes,
That's
Lord, I
right.
so do. So
You look good,
going
Deborah. You look good. So I'm going to tell
why,
you for
thank
you,
you,
for the whole
thank
world.
you,
You look
thank
good.
you. Thank you,
Okay,
thank you, thank you.
okay.
But and it's
You sound very excited when you talk about this book. I can't help but acknowledge the passion and excitement that you have for that adjectives book. It makes me want to go and get this book so I can have some words and some backups to people when they say negative things. That sounds like an interesting book to have.
yes, ma'am, and it also has a workbook. It's meant for women to work through. It really is for men and women, but it deals with a lot of things because I went again. This is coming out of a dark time. So, adjective stands is an acronym, and it goes through many different steps, many different levels about how to take the mask off, how to be voluptuous. Because a lot of times we don't know, we don't learn who we are. We go straight to being not voluptuous. I'm sorry, how to be sensuous. We go from we mess up our relationships because we don't deal with who we are actually. So this helps you learn who you are, be able to be the best you. So that way when you do enter that relationship, you're entering into a relationship as a whole person. And I'm not just talking about a relationship with a significant other. I'm talking about relationships with friends, with jobs, with new communities. And it just helps you because when you know who you are, then you're able to take it to the next step in whatever you're doing. So that's
Okay.
my first baby. My
All right.
second baby, 21 days, 21 days and 21 minutes of prayer and meditation. Y'all, this book is basically, it takes 21 days to develop a habit. So a lot of times we don't pray, we don't meditate. So it's like, why are you going to put prayer on this book? I said, you know what? Out of all the religions, I don't care what religion you have, the common denominator is prayer. Everybody prays. So this is what this book deals with. It deals with just taking 21 minutes. So in that 21 minutes, there is a formula in there. You're going to do 7 minutes of reading something inspirational, whether it's an inspirational book, whether it's a prayer book, whatever you want to read. In that 7 minutes, you'll read 7 minutes of that. Then the next 7 minutes, next 7 minutes, you're going to pray for 7 minutes. And so I'm like, well, that's not a long time. Yes, it is. If you've never prayed intentional, the thing about it is that you're being intentional about what you're praying for. So if you're praying for a job, you're in that 7 minutes, that's all you're going to pray about is that job. If you're praying for peace, that's all you're going to pray about in that 7 minutes. If you're praying for healing, that's all you're going to pray about in that 7 minutes. And then after that 7 minutes, you're going to take 7 minutes just to meditate. And meditation means nothing but sitting still and listening. And a lot of times we say we don't hear from God, we don't get our prayers answered. That's because you're not sitting still long enough to hear from God. You're not listening, you're not able to hear because you got all this other stuff bouncing around you. So that's what that 21 minutes consists of. There are specific things that you have to do within that 21 minutes and in those 21 days. And it also has
Wow.
different starter prayers in
Hmm.
there as well. So, say for instance, you
Hmm.
are praying about infertility, you are praying about a mate, you are praying about healing. There are prayers already in there to help jumpstart your 7 minutes of prayer.
Wow. 21 days, 21 minutes. It's almost like, it's almost like when I first went to college for the first time and they first told me about it takes 21 days or 21 whatever to create a habit.
Mhm.
And I'm listening to this guy and I'm like, what is he talking about? And I actually I took up the challenge because he put up a challenge, right? This was sort of our orientation before we started classes when he started that. And so by the time 21 days came, I realized I was doing things in a repetitive state. I didn't even know because I had actually forgot about what he had said, really.
Mhm.
But then by the time I went back to look and we did a follow up, he was like, well, how many people, were doing certain things? Because there was a time management sheet that we had to fill out for our homework assignment for the 21 days. And come to find out that there were things that I was doing that was habitual,
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
I think that's a really good way of getting people to like you said, be intentional and be consistent. I had a journal and I had a specific time that I had to write in my journal every single day. And when I go back and I read the journals that I had, all the stuff that I wanted to do happened because I really believed in what I was doing. And it is hard, it's difficult, and it doesn't matter who you are, what you're trying to do. Sometimes just taking that step to just centralize everything and just work through it step by step. And I definitely think your book will be helpful in helping people do that. So thank you and congratulations on your books and all that. It sounds very exciting. So
Awesome. Thank you.
so let me ask you another question. Okay, so are you involved in any type of activities or events in which you're going to be speaking or coaching that people need to know about in the next few months?
Not in the next few months. I have a few things that are coming up, but the major thing is those. If anybody would like to join us in Cuba, we will be doing a Cuba cruise, but it's not until November because conversations is actually going through some transitions right now, which is so cool. And I know we're going to be doing a media event that's be coming up the next. We had to reschedule it. So actually, I would say just go to our website, go to conversations.franklin.com, and you can definitely get our updated calendar of where we're going to be, and we definitely would love to see you there because we
Okay.
have
Can
so
you
much
repeat that?
going
Can,
on.
can you repeat that website one more time? Because I don't think everybody heard that website again.
It's conversations with an S, DeborahFranklin.com, and it is Deborah
Okay.
DeBorah Franklin Franklin. And I had to say it like that because I really didn't realize that there were as many different variations of spelling my
Hmm.
last name until I moved out here.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of different variations everywhere in the DMV area.
Yeah.
That is for sure. That is definitely for sure. So the last question that I have is, what do you need personally and professionally, or either or? What do you need personally or professionally to do what you do and to keep thriving in your business or your personal life? What do you need?
Me time. And I know that may sound selfish, that may sound different, but right now, if I had to do anything, what the one thing that is keeping me going is being able to carve out that time just to renew my mind, my soul, and my spirit. And I tell that to anybody now because when you are a workaholic or somebody that just can just, for lack of a better say, just can just grind nonstop. When you learn, and when I learned to just take that time, and I'm not saying I have to take weeks at a time, days at a time. It could be just a couple of hours of just being able to sit, be still, be quiet. That is one of the major things that I have learned and I have really incorporated into my well-being to help me make it to that next level. Because it's no sense of trying to make it to the top and then you can't enjoy it because now you're so burned out. You sick. You in the hospital. All for lack of a better statement, all the money that you made or all the connections that you made, you're not going to be using it because you're going to have to now. You're going to be taking forced rest. So being able to take that rest is one of the major things, the major
Mhm.
accomplishments that
Mhm.
I would have to say that helps me sustain where I am and where I'm going.
Absolutely. Okay. So you heard it, folks. You got it from Deborah Franklin with an IN at the end of the last name. That she has a talk show host. If you are interested, if you're an indie artist and you have a unique set skill and you align with what her show is all about, make sure you click on the bottom of the page and definitely book yourself on her podcast. If you've never been on a BMWC and you would like to share your information, just make sure you check back here in 2020 for the BMWC casting call because people like us want people like you, okay, that will really talk about what you got going on. And I'm just so happy to see other podcasters and you doing so good, Deborah. I'm so proud of you. I'm
Oh,
just so
thank
happy for
you.
you. I'm just giving you a hand clap because it is hard running a podcast. And I will give like my one advice before we end this out is if you are planning to start a podcast platform, and I keep going back to my aunt who passed away recently, but she always says, have something meaningful to say. Have
Mhm.
something meaningful to say. You know, she was a very dynamic speaker in her own right, pastor and everything. And when I went to her and told her that I wanted to do something similar like this or be a speaker, she said, you got to have something to say that resonates with people, people who resonate with you and align with what you do. And if you don't have anything to say and you don't know how to say it, you need to make sure you join a Toastmasters or some sort of speaking club or something to start before you do a podcast because it's nothing worse than having a podcast and you don't have good communication skills. Tying back to what you were doing as far as communication skills for your bachelor's degree, get the training before you do it. That's sort of like my little advice to anybody that's listening. And so
And may I
also,
add?
oh, yeah, go right ahead.
Because even with you said Toastmasters, but a lot of
Hmm.
times you don't. Even if you don't have that time to go to a Toastmasters, or you can't find someone in a Toastmasters club, what I would
Hmm.
advise, get a media coach, because so
Oh,
many times as a podcaster and as a radio person, as a TV host, there are so many other different skills. Not only having something to say, but being able to discuss who you are and whose you are in a particular way that people really do gravitate to what you're saying. You really need to find a media coach. And a lot of times people, they don't equate, they think about the media coach after they've gone through and quote unquote bombed everything. But you really need to, if you want to be a speaker, you want to be an author. Even I tell this to authors, majorly to authors, because so many times they're so caught in their head with their characters that they don't know how to communicate outside of their head. So a media coach helps pull that out of you and help you to build your voice.
Absolutely. You got to have a voice. And so I want to let everybody know to please make sure that you check out all the podcasts and listen to all the podcasts, check out all the pages. And if you like this interview, which I know that you guys will, please make sure you like, share, and vote for Deborah to win one of the 7 BMWOC awards. We have all of that up for grabs. And thank you so much, Deborah, for being on the podcast. I'm definitely excited, and it has been a pleasure talking with you because we had fun. I actually had fun on here, and I'm pretty sure we made a lot of people laugh in this interview. So thank you so much. Thank you